So a bunch of us recently have run into the same kind of issue, myself included, and that was that how do you get SteamVR and nDisplay tracking together? The core of this issue is that the SteamVR plugin and the nDisplay plugin are compatible with each other at the moment, so it crashes Unreal Engine when you try and run it in a build. The other option to get tracking into nDisplay instead of LiveLink, for example, or a native plugin, is to use VRPN. So we've got a little VRPN server. It's not something we've written, it's open source. I'll provide a link in the description. But I just thought I'd make a little video showing you how to get that up and running, so you guys can be tracking away in nDisplay ASAP. So here's the folder that I'll include. It's got a bunch of debug tools and the VRPN server itself. So if I fire that up, as you can see, I've got SteamVR running here as well, and you can see my various devices. And here they are showing up in the VRPN server. And these are the addresses of the devices that the VRPN server can see. And this is relevant because we need to feed these into our config file. So here's how I'm bringing the Vive tracker in. So I've called it Vive VRPN. That's important to have reference to this. I mean, call it what you want, but we're going to be referencing this in Unreal Engine. I'll show you that in a bit. It's of type tracker. Here's its address, which, as you can see, matches what's coming out of the VRPN server. Notice the whole address is unique potentially. So a HMD is in a HMD folder, controllers are in a controller folder, and the path for trackers is trackers. Now occasionally, if you're just using a tracker and no controllers, the tracker shows up as a controller. So just keep an eye on this address because it can change. But this is how you reference it. And then the other thing I had to do was mix and match these around until I got something that kind of worked. It essentially allows the mapping for up, down, left, right to correlate. So with that running, we've got our nDisplay listener and our nDisplay launcher. If I just run this project, I'll show you what it does. As you can see, we are getting tracking coming in. Just going to hit T, which I'll explain what that is in a minute. And so now once I've got that reset, as you can see moving the tracker around, we're getting this parallax shift happening on screen. If I just bring my web camera and sit it underneath the Vive tracker, you'll see the effect that we're getting is that it appears that the monitor is this white box with these pyramids in. This is a test scene, just something I wanted to kind of get up and running ahead of a proof of concept I'm putting together, but this was my use case for SteamVR. I don't have a Vicon tracker here, for example. I don't have an OptiTrack, so this is what I needed SteamVR for, and VRPN is allowing this to happen, which is great. Just pop my webcam back, and we'll dive into Unreal Engine, and I'll show you what's required on that side to get this to work. Just come out of here, dive into Unreal Engine, let's close SteamVR out of the way. So very basic map. Here's the 3D geometry that I've created. This is all real world scale values. That's quite important. It's very important to have a tape measure when you're working with nDisplay. Make sure everything matches to the real world. But here's how we bring in VRPN. So we've got this running off of event tick. So for every frame, we want to go and get the location of the Vive tracker, and we use this function here, which is referencing from the nDisplay API. And as you can see, here's the Vive VRPN device ID as per the config file. I mean, we can call this what we want. We can call it Bob if we want, but I mean, as long as this matches with this, you'll pull it in. And then all we're really doing is taking the location of that and setting the relative location of this specific scene component, which is the display cluster dot display cluster camera component. That's the camera that nDisplay is using to change perspective, field of view, and off-axis projection. There's obviously a few other bits that I'm doing here. Specifically, I mentioned pressing T in order to reset the position of the tracker. All that is just because relatively I wanted to be able to decide where the 0 reset position of the 5 tracker is, and so that all I'm doing is grabbing the current value of wherever this is in world space, and then setting it to a variable which I then subtract to the next value as it comes in, and that's basically allowing me to just say this position here is 0, you know, from the make all the tracking points that come in after this relative to this point in space. It just allows me to reset. That's it. That's all you need to do. Like I mentioned, there's a couple of other debug tools that you might find useful. Let me pull those up for you. They're in this folder here. Let's have a look at print devices. So we run this from command prompt. I'll include these are all relative to my devices, so a bit useless for you, but you just need to change the relative paths here, and I just don't like typing if I don't have to, so I just copy and paste these every time I want to pull them up. And as you can see, this is going to run VRPN print devices.exe, and this next instruction basically tells it to debug the Vive tracker. So if I paste this in, hit enter, here we go. And now you can see the debug information. This was really useful for me to be able to work out what kind of data I was getting in. But it's pretty straightforward data. But there's various other tools for you guys to use. So I hope that helps. Follow up with any questions you might have. Links for everything you need in description. Enjoy.